Howdy, Immortalium here. Today I'm reviewing Persona 4 for the PS2, lent to me by Candy Kiss, who I thank for lending the game. So what is Persona 4? Persona 4 is an RPG game created by Atlas, released in, I think it was 2007 in Japan and 2008 in the West. It's part of the Shin Megami Tensei series, and what's the story? You play a transfer student who arrives in a town called Inaba, and his parents are away, and he has to move in with his uncle and his cousin, and he goes to school, he meets some friends, but then some murders begin taking place in something called the Midnight Channel. Basically, when you go to your TV at midnight, if it's off, a channel will appear showing someone. And when the mist next comes to Inaba, they die, whoever's on the Midnight Channel, unless you can save them. So that's the plot, basically. But it's a really, really good plot. Tons of twists and memorable characters and memorable moments. I'm going to talk about the characters first before I elaborate more on the plot. There's your friends, Yosuke and Chie, who you meet at the beginning, and Yukiko. And then you meet more individuals over the period of the game. Someone I forgot to mention, of course, how could I forget, is Teddy, who is he's obviously the mascot for the game, but he's a hilarious little character. And what do I think of the characters? They're fantastic. I love them. Basically, this game, story-wise, is the closest I think that I've ever come to playing an anime, basically. I haven't played much visual novels at all, so, you know, don't compare me on that, but in terms of the story and characters and everything, I think this is the closest to an anime that I've ever played, even more than, say, the Final Fantasies or Dragon Quest or anything. Because there's so many memorable moments, the characters all react in that classic anime fashion, and they even have, like, the sweat drops and, you know, everything. It's fantastic, and the characters are great as well. How's the gameplay? Well, the gameplay is split up into two parts. Basically, you have the social aspect of it, where basically when you're not in the TV, you're going to school, meeting friends, raising up your social rank with them, which unlocks several benefits. You can start going out with a girl. You can, unlock new abilities for your comrades. You can, basically, when you combine Persona, which are basically these beings that you use in battle. I'll move on to them more in a moment. When you combine them, having a rank up in a certain area will, grant extra experience points to them. And there's lots of benefits to the social thing. And I must admit, I was kind of dreading the social gaming aspect of it, but actually turned out to be really, really fun. Basically, it's not too interactive per se, it's just more about managing your time, since there's only a certain amount of time you have before the mist appears. So basically, you go up to a character, you have some responses, and that's it really. But the stories of each character are fantastic, I think. I didn't meet everyone that I could have had, obviously, because of the fact that it was limited time, but the characters that I did get to hang out with were just, amazing stories and everything, and it was a pleasure to do the social aspect to it. Plus I got like 5 girlfriends in it. There was one point where it looked like that 2 girlfriends might have copped me out, but I managed to get away with it, so that was good. Although that brings up another point. Despite the fact that I was dating several girls, it seemed like in the main story it didn't have any influence, particularly considering the fact that 3 of them were my party members. You'd expect that they would at least talk to each other about the fact that they were dating me, which seems a bit odd, but what can you do? I guess maybe that would have required a lot more coding than the 2 years they were given. The other aspect of gameplay is when you enter the TV world. Basically, you go to a store called Junez, where there's this big, huge television. You go through it into this other world where the people who show up on the Midnight Channel are taken to, and you have to fight these creatures called shadows, which then convert into these beings called persona. Basically, what a persona is it's an aspect of your personality given form, an incarnation. You use them in combat. Actually, the main character is able to switch between persona, which, you know, grant him different abilities and different stats and different weaknesses and strengths and all that jazz. It reminds me a bit of the Final Fantasy 13 and Final Fantasy X-2 gameplay. Probably be more correct to say Final Fantasy X-2, since Final Fantasy 13 came out after this, so it could have been influenced by Persona 4. But X-2, I'm fairly sure, came out before Persona 4, so maybe it got influenced by that with his persona. One weakness, though, I guess it's not so much a weakness in that you can actually get rid of this if you want, but I just found it an unnecessary feature, is that you only need to control your main character, and you can give, like, you know, tactics, you know, to your other party members, so they'll do certain actions. But in overall, like, it's illogical, really, I found, to, you know, give them anything, you know, to do besides you directly commanding them. You know, you save, you know, your SP, which is your equivalent MP, you know, in this much better, and then you can also, like, you have better control on weaknesses and all that jazz as well. So, you know, it just seems, I don't know, illogical to just have, you know, be giving them commands. I guess that's for people who, you know, aren't into RPGs, but if you're not into RPGs, why are you playing this, you know? Another criticism I must have is that when you're rescuing people, you have to enter these dungeons, and each dungeon is very long. Basically, if you explore each floor properly and fight all the shadows to get experience points and all that, it can take you about 3 hours straight through. And the problem is, the only save point throughout the entire dungeon is located at the very end before you fight the boss. So think about that. If you lose at any point throughout the entire dungeon, you're gonna die and you have to restart the dungeon all over again. Now, there is a convenient thing in that, okay, first of all, when you get to the save point at the end, you can go back to the entrance, and when you try to enter again, you'll go directly back to that floor. It also applies to, you have an item called Go Home M, which you can use to go back to the entrance, although I found them to be, you know, I wasn't sure how many dungeons there were, so I basically just decided that I would play straight through. Plus, there isn't too many of them, although they might be purchasable. So that is a criticism, I think. I think there should have been more save points throughout. So yeah, that's another criticism. Graphics wise, it has a very appealing art style. Actually, first of all, there are a few anime sequences throughout the story. Now, there isn't too much anime sequences, to be honest. If I had to count it, at best, probably 15 minutes. You know, it's not much, you know, out of a 70-hour game. So, you know, that is a bit of a disappointment. I would have liked some more, you know, anime scenes. But they were nice for, you know, the moments that they were there. And, you know, and the graphics themselves are very cel-shaded looking, very anime looking. They're not as good as, say, the Final Fantasy games. I mean, you know, I'm used to the PS3 games, PC games these days, so when I was going back I was like, oh yeah, this was PS2. But then I remembered that Final Fantasy X and Final Fantasy X-2, you know, were on the PS2, and they look fantastic. They still kind of hold up. So, you know, but still, it looks nice. I mean, there's a great deal of character design, you know, very appealing monsters and persona and everything. So graphics-wise, could have been better, yeah, it could have been, but it holds up for what it needs to be. And there's several other issues that I must talk about as well, just before I get to some of the better points. When it comes to trying to get to the ending, there's a specific point which I found very annoying. Basically, there's this moment in the game, I won't spoil what moment it is, but when you get to it, you're given a series of 5 questions, and you must answer each one correctly. Otherwise, you end up with a bad ending. And that I found very annoying. The first time I did it, I chose, you know, answers that I thought were logical, and then I got the bad ending. I was like, what? Luckily, I had saved just a little bit before that, although I was set back a bit. And I looked it up online. It turned out I had gotten the first 2 questions right. It was only the other 3 that I gotten wrong, which surprises me. That's a very harsh system. So that just to me seems illogical. Another issue, which I personally didn't have much of an issue with, considering there's a computer nearby. But there's some of the questions that are asked in this game. Basically, when you're in school, you have to do things like question it and all that, which will increase your knowledge and all that. But some of the questions they ask you are so obscure. Like, I mean, it was a good thing I had the computer near me, or else I would have gotten practically most of them wrong, I'd say. Well, that you are given 3 choices, so I guess a third of them maybe I'd have gotten through luck, but or logic. But still, it just seems a bit of an odd system, and if you don't have a computer nearby or on handy, it just you're gonna have a lot of mess ups in that, and that's gonna interfere with your social linking. Now to talk about some of the good aspects. Basically, I want to talk about the combat system a bit. One aspect that I really liked is that each enemy usually has a weakness. And you have to find out that weakness. It can be fire, thunder, or water, no, ice, and wind. Sorry, I'll just go through that one more time. Fire, wind, ice, and thunder. Yeah, okay, just those kind of elements. And there's light and darkness as well, but I didn't use those elements too much because they're insta-kill kind of stuff with chances. And I really like this system because of the fact that when you knock down an enemy, you knock down an enemy when you hit its weakness, and once you knock down all your enemies, plus you get an extra turn when you knock down an enemy. When you knock down all your enemies, you're able to do this super mega attack. Basically, it's a cartoony kind of, characters jumping at the enemy, and like you see that cartoon kind of cloud of smoke with bam, 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 in bubbles like coming out all over it, and then it does a ton of damage. And it's a very, it might sound maybe a little overpowered, but it's actually a very intelligent system. Because of the fact that you got to test out your enemies, figure out what their weakness is, and then exploit that. So that's an excellent part of the combat, and I really appreciated it. Another aspect that I really liked was the whole you have all these stats. Basically, you have 5 stats. You have your courage, your understanding, your diligence, your knowledge, and your there was one other stat, I'll think of it in a moment. But basically, you got to train them up, and you're able to do certain actions with them then. And it's actually quite addictive, finding out how you can get up your stats in order to be able to unlock new new interactions with characters and everything. So what do I think of this game overall? I loved it. It's fantastic. It's one of the best games I've played in a while. Is it perfect? No. There are several issues that I've pointed out. Namely, the graphics could have been better. Could have been more anime sequences. Needed more save points, and the fact that certain social decisions that would be logical to incorporate into the main storyline are left out of it for some odd reason. But besides that, this is an excellent game. I played the PS2 version, but there is a version that was released recently for the PS Vita called Persona 4 Golden, with improved graphics and features and resolution and all that jazz. So that sounds like the best version to get. Problem is, PS Vita isn't that good right now. So that's basically, if you buy PS Vita, basically you're just buying it for that and some other games. But that sounds like the best version to get. You might, if you're able to track down Persona 4 PS2 version, that's also well worth getting, in my opinion. So, yeah, thank you for watching. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and bye-bye.